What in the world can we do? That's the question the disciples must have asked as they looked out upon the massive crowd that was following Jesus as he journeyed to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. The author of the Gospel of John places the head count at 5,000. It is safe to say that there was a pretty good bunch of folk who wanted to not only hear what Jesus had to say and see what Jesus was going to do, but it was a crowd that also wanted lunch. So please imagine the feeling that must have ripped through the gut of Philip and the rest of the disciples when they heard Jesus ask, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" On the other side of the Sea of Galilee, there was no running down the street to the Vista supermarket to pick up a few extra items. There were no Visa, MasterCard, or American Express cards with a balance to run up in the hopes that some money might pour into the coffers before the bill was due. There were just 5,000 plus hungry people expectantly staring at Jesus and his disciples, and I'm absolutely sure that at first those disciples stood there standing with wide-eyed fear and not a single clue as to what in the world they were going to do. In fact, my guess is that the immensity of the problem, the enormity of the challenge initially paralyzed Jesus' faithful friends to the point where all they could do was stand there with that glazed look on their faces as they asked themselves, "What in the world can we do?" Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever felt yourself overwhelmed by a crisis, a problem seemingly so large that it makes you feel so small? A challenge in your life or within society that is absolutely needs to be addressed, but appears to be so enormous that you find yourself intimidated, paralyzed, and just plain dazed to inaction, to the point where all you're able to accomplish is to shake your head and ask, "What can we do? What can we do about the poverty that ravages our community? What can we do about the crime, the drug addiction, the violence that gnaws at the very fabric of our civilized society? What in the world can we do about the tenor of the political debate within our state as well as our nation that has devolved into little more than pointing fingers and throwing words at one another in the hope that everyone can throw enough blame around and stall long enough to defeat the opposing party in November? And in the meantime, nothing gets done. No wonder we're in a mess. No wonder the problems of our society have grown so large that everyone just tosses up their hand, sticks their head in the sand, and moans in wide-eyed paralysis, "What can we do?" Well, let me tell you what we can do. We can live our faith. We can trust that even something small, when it is offered in the spirit of love and placed into the hands of the living Christ, can make a difference. That's what happened on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. At some point, one of the disciples, Andrew, shook the doubts and fears from his head and his heart, and found a little boy with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish and decided it was worth mentioning it to Jesus. Now at that point, I have no idea what happened. I haven't a clue. I don't know if somehow Jesus miraculously multiplied the bread and the fish. I don't know if the boy's example somehow served as an inspiration for the 5,000 plus to turn their hidden picnic baskets into a buffet. I don't know. I just know that the Gospel of John tells us that the people were fed and there was plenty left over. one disciple and one little boy saw the potential, had the faith and the courage to take the risk and put that little offering into the hands of Jesus. And people were fed. And it made one whale of a difference. Poverty, crime, drug addiction, violence, the tenor of our society. What can we do? Well, let me tell you. We must all move beyond our paralysis, live our faith, and echo the words of Helen Keller, who once wrote, "I am only one, but I am still one. I cannot do everything, but I can still do something, and I will not refuse to do the something I can do." My friends, no matter how small our meager offering, we have to do something besides wring our hands, shake our heads, moan, and groan. We need to understand that when we lift people up, crime goes down. We need to remember that when we speak and address issues with civility and hope, problems can be solved. And we need to recognize that when we reach out with kindness and compassion to the least and the lost, we serve as an example that helps those around us move beyond woe is me and what can we do. Now, you've all heard this story before. You may even be getting tired of it, but it's our story and it's a good story. A year and a half ago, this church and Better Together embarked on an effort to provide hungry children with healthy lunches during the summer vacation. Because 60% of our kids get free or reduced lunches in this community. And the question was asked, what do they do in the summer? And now initially there were a few folks who said, what can we do? The problem is so enormous. We can't do that. What will we do if we can't raise enough money? And a bunch of folk and our dear Paula said, we will feed them. And last year, 314 children received healthy lunches for the summer. And this year, 180 volunteers are feeding 450 children. And on top of that, 5 more communities are either feeding or getting ready to feed hungry children. What can we do? We can live our faith and make a difference for hungry children. We can register and attend a forum on Tuesday at the middle school from 3:30 to 7 entitled Reducing Poverty in Belknap County by 2020. The flyers are right here. And regardless of our political party, we must all speak up and politely insist that if our representatives and candidates for public office want our vote, then they must begin to speak with respect, civility, and commit themselves to explore positive solutions that bring people together to solve problems rather than drive them apart. What can we do? We can use our imaginations, our faith, and our gifts. Move beyond our paralysis and do something. I am only one, but I am still one. I cannot do everything, but I can still do something. And I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. It may not be much, but our meager offering may seem small. It may seem small and appear as if our gifts will barely scratch the surface. But when offered in the spirit of love and placed in the hands of Jesus, our modest gifts can and will make a difference. What can we do? My friends, we can live our faith, and together we can change this community. We can change the world. Amen.